When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
Welcome to the Dr. Raj podcast with Dr. Raj Dasgupta, a show all about educating patients, students, and aspiring doctors about better patient care. Dr. Raj is a quadruple board-certified physician and associate professor at the University of Southern California. He was a co-host of the TNT series Chasing the Cure with Ann Curry, as well as a regular on the TV show The Doctors. And now, here's our show.
Hi, and welcome to the Dr. Raj podcast. So what is this a podcast of? The keywords are happiness and wellness, great, amazing stories, people just doing awesome things that pump you up to be a better person. That's what the Dr. Raj podcast is about. And today, I definitely have a special guest. And you know what I always say is the best part about having your own podcast? You could bring your friends. And this is truly one of my good friends. She's just an awesome person on the inside, on the outside. And she's an entrepreneur, but she's super duper down to earth. So I'm really excited for her to tell her story here. There's a little medical twist that's going to be in there. So it serves kind of both of my passions, telling great stories and a little bit of medicine at the same time. So today's guest is Lilly Rocha, and I'm going to read her bio before, we're going to meet her. So she is the current CEO of Latino Restaurant Association, a 800 plus member national organization here in Los Angeles, California. Lilly is also the founder of Sabor Latino Food Industry Trade Show, the nation's largest Latino food trade show. A graduate of the University of California Berkeley, Lilly also attended St. Mary's University in London, England. Lilly graduated from UC Berkeley during the height of this dot-com bubble, which we're going to talk about in Silicon Valley, and her first job was as a project manager for Nokia in Mountain View, California. Lilly developed a serious interest in trade show and conference management, which eventually led to her to earn both a CNP and a CMM certifications. Just to mention, those are the highest in the meeting planning industry. Lilly eventually founded the Sabor Latino Food Industry Trade Show in 2013 when she noticed there was a huge gap in the trade show industry for Latino foods. With Lilly's expertise in sales, marketing, and project management, Sabor Latino has become a recognized brand in the trade show industry and serves as a premier business platform for Latin food professionals. Lilly also has a business industry leadership certifications from Cal State University, San Francisco, UCLA, and my home school, USC, where I work right now. Lilly developed a passion for healthy eating while a student at UC Berkeley. This passion has led to a lifelong commitment to wholesome living. Lilly enthusiastically shares her passion for healthy eating by volunteering for the organizations such as the American Heart Association, the Long Beach Memorial Women's Heart Institute, and the Heart and Vascular Institute at LBMMC. So just to mention a few more things, Lilly serves on so many boards, including Honor PAC, Latinx / LGBTQ plus political action. She also serves on the, now I'm going to say this wrong, Asociación de Empresarios Mexicanos, AEM, and last, Latino Restaurant Association, as well as being the immediate past president and current board member for Latino Food Industry Association and a corporate advisor and board member of the Long Beach Memorial Heart and Vascular Institute. Lilly, that took 2 whole pages.
Oh my
How are
God.
you doing today?
Oh my God. I want to get to know that person. First of all,
There
thank
you
you so
are.
much.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you so much. That was quite an intro, and it sounds amazing, and it is. However, you're right. You and I, that's why we get along, because we've done a lot, and then we kind of keep it real, keep it down to earth. We're down with the people.
Well,
And so,
this is a good segue for my first couple questions because we want to know where you came from and all that stuff. Because let's go back to high school. We're going to jump into my favorite time machine. Back in high school, I mean, what was your goal? What did you feel like? What did you want to be when you grew up, Lilly?
oh my gosh, I was one of those people in high school that, I definitely was smart. I was in the honors classes, a couple of AP classes here and there. And then, and I knew what was up. But in terms of like the social, I wasn't, like the most popular. I wasn't like unpopular, but I wasn't like part of popular crowd. I found that out, recently when everyone was on Facebook saying, "Man, wasn't that trip to Maui after we graduated amazing?" And I was like, I guess since I didn't go.
People went to Maui. There was a Maui trip.
There was a Maui trip. I had no idea. So I did like the math and science, and I was, one of the first students at my high school to do computer programming. And at that time, it was brand new. We're talking the 80s, right? We're talking about brand new. People were, computers were everything was new. And so
you had like the Commodore 64 computer with the floppy disk.
Man, we got a Commodore 64 with a floppy disk. You got it. And, you got it. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So, we had those and we had, it was just interesting because I was part of like the math club that got to take the first computer programming classes at my high school. So, I should have stuck with it, honestly.
So did you feel in high school you're going to go the computer route? Is that kind of like you're impressed with that technology?
No, I should have gone the computer route, definitely. But no, I did not. I did not. And I think if I had been encouraged, that's one of the things that's so important now, that some of the work that I do with young people, especially people of color, where, we're really encouraging women and the young, women, boys and girls to both, really, especially in the Latino community, to encourage them to follow, math and science, because I think I would have been amazing at it. And I was, I was already, but so, right. So at that time, I used to watch this show called Hotel. I don't know if you remember that, way back, Connie Selica, 1980. And I wanted to be the manager. Because it was like about a hotel manager. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's my job right there. And I always wanted to travel the world. But, you're young, you don't really know like careers. I just knew that I wanted like an international type of situation. And so I always had that sort of idea.
No, that's awesome. So let me ask, just kind of moving on. I mean, you went to UC Berkeley. So what was your major in UC Berkeley? Now that you're like, hey, I want to be this kind of like jet setter, entrepreneur, hotel manager type person. And can you kind of also mention, how did that end up you going to London to do some of your education?
By the time I got to UC Berkeley, I'd already kind of changed my mind and wanted to go into business. But I knew that I wanted to do like international business or something in on the global stage. I really wanted to do something on the global stage. And so when I graduated from there, I got introduced to something called meeting management, which a lot of folks have no idea what that is. And what meeting management is, it's the business of running trade shows. And so where you're really studying like the revenue models and how trade shows make money. To give you an example, you probably go to a million medical trade shows, right? And you probably just get there and do your thing. And of course, you're like keynote speaker and you're doing your thing and you're doing all the breakouts. Well, there's a whole team of people that put those things together. And so it usually takes about 18 months of planning for all of this to happen. And so it could take up to 18 months to 2 years, 3 years in some cases to plan these giant trade shows. And so I got introduced to that world and I absolutely loved it. So then fast forward, I was managing food and beverage trade shows. And I loved it. And yes, you're like the coffee shows, the, food and beverage, like fancy food, gourmet foods, all these different shows. And all of it all of those shows all have to do with the trade only industry, which means they're not open to the public. They're people doing business with each other. For example, if you're selling a beverage and you want that beverage to go to Whole Foods, then we got to get the Whole Foods people at the trade show. We got to get you and your manufacturers. So it has nothing to do with the public. So a lot of folks think, because I do a lot of food industry events, sometimes mistakenly think that I do food festivals and things like that. Where I started my career was in the food and beverage trade show industry. So after studying how to put on these giant conferences and trade shows, so I started doing those, at the very bottom level, kind of, running errands for the boss, and then kind of work my way up to being the boss within a scope of about 15 years. So, because, it is a very competitive field. There's not a lot of people of color doing it. I was still am, one of very few people that have all those certifications that you mentioned. So the certifications are, important because, you got to keep learning on the trends and things that are happening in the industry. And you're just much more respected when you do have those certifications under your belt. So,
I'll tell you one thing, we've been friends for a while, and this is the first time I actually understood what you do, because I think you cheated and looked at my paper, because one of my next question was, can you explain to my listeners what is a trade show? Because, I think that's a key thing. You stole my thunder, but, I'm one of those people who just thought that, you're in the food industry. There's a lot of just restaurants that come together. And as I'm reading your resume, your CV, it sounds so awesome at such a high level. And the way you give that analogy for Whole Foods, that makes sense. That is so awesome. So you kind of skipped one of my questions because you didn't see my sheet, but you mentioned in your CV you grew up during the .com bubble. And I wanted you to kind of tell to my younger listeners, what does it mean to be in the .com era bubble? And how did you not go that route? Or is it related to the trade show industry?
A lot of younger people take it for granted now. We have like a million apps, and everything's so digital and mobile friendly, and that was not the case back then. Everything was brand new. I mean, my God, I was around when like eBay started, like Amazon, Jeff Bezos out there in Silicon Valley, everyone like, Craigslist. I knew Craig from Craigslist. It's like, like that's the era that I come from. And so, there's what they call the .com bubbles. And so I was in, I think it was the second bubble that burst. And that's just, when everyone was kind of hedging and investing in .com, something called .com. No one knew what it was. And, people were just excited about it. And so, a lot of great things were happening at the same time. That, like I said, that's when like Amazon started, eBay, was new. All of these companies were new. It was an exciting time. So when I graduated from Cal, I was there. I was in Silicon Valley, and they were basically hiring everybody. And it's like you have a heartbeat. Okay, you're hired. That's the way it was going down up in Silicon Valley. They were just paying anybody. They just didn't have enough people to work. They were bringing people from all over the world. You had everyone from every country kind of coming over to Silicon Valley. It was good times. It was good times. Good times. A lot of money and good times. Well, that's why they call it the bubble burst. And the bubble did, burst, and then everyone gets fired, laid off, sent back to your own country, get out of Silicon Valley. I was one of the, I actually have a really cool story because I was working for Nokia at that time.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah,
Nokia, it was like working for Apple at that time. It was literally like working for Apple because, Apple phone wasn't around. It was the Nokia phone. And so the Nokia phone was the phone to have, everyone like that was
totally
it. Right. Yeah, that was it. Like you had to have your phone. So I was working for Nokia, and then, when the bubble burst, a lot of people, obviously didn't want to get laid off. And what was happening there, I had a good friend in HR, and my friend was like, "No, don't worry, your job is secure. I'm gonna, you got your hookup, whatever." And you're like, "Yeah, your job is fine." And so, but then I found out that the people they were laying off, they were paying them for a year. They were like basically getting a 1-year compensation package. And I was like, dude, I want that. What are you talking about? Right.
Yeah.
And so, but my job was secure. So what happened was that I there was a friend of mine who did get laid off, and then she wanted to stay. And I was thinking, gosh, insanity. I want out of this craziness right now.
Of course.
She wanted to stay and I wanted to go. So we went to HR with our HR connections, and they allowed us to switch jobs so that she stayed.
Oh.
And then I got the 1-year compensation package. And let me tell you, that was like one of the greatest decisions of my life. Okay.
Totally.
So I basically got my 1-year compensation package and I moved to Europe. And so I was living in Europe for 1 year, and I was getting paid every 2 weeks as if I was an employee. And so
that's how you do it.
That was like the greatest time. That's the greatest time of my life. So I was based in London. I had gone to school in London prior to that. I had knowledge of London because I did spend a year abroad at UC Berkeley.
Yep.
And then that's kind of how I got to London my second time. But I moved around. Then I lived at the Hotel Cologne. It's COLON.
Okay.
Prior to the renovation in Barcelona. Now it's been renovated. It's totally different, but it was like the total like European experience of like living in this hotel in Europe and Barcelona and getting paid and just like, I mean, it was joyous, being like the humongous ego person that I am. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get back, when my year was up, I was like, I'll be back in the Bay Area. Yeah. I'll have a job in like 5 minutes. No problem. Right. And so I get back to the Bay Area and oh my God, there was like no jobs, like nothing. Like they had,
oh boy,
I knew people who were like PhDs. They were like baristas at Starbucks. And, after about 5-6 months of being in the Bay Area, no longer with my compensation package, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get back to LA and go live with my mom on her couch.
Why not?
Right.
All roads always lead back to mom's house somewhere in the couch. Exactly.
Right. So all roads lead to mother's couch. And so, after being at the Hotel Cologne, after being in London, oh my God, a weekend in Amsterdam and all this stuff, I'm like back to my mom's house in Bellflower, California. So,
your story has like a Debbie Downer ending. You're like some jet setter, and then I'm on mom's couch.
Yeah, exactly. So from there, got back, I ended up, kind of starting all over again here in LA. And which is where I live now. And so just started again, my career in, the movie management world. So I just kind of started bottom, worked for a local hospital, kind of became familiar with, hospital operations, things like that. That's kind of where my health background started with, working in hospitals. There's jobs where you do all the events. As you know, like hospitals put on tons of events, especially your USC has a whole department of people like me. Yeah, hired to do events.
Yeah, it's like neurology, cardiothoracic surgery, event planning.
That is no joke. Okay, USC,
no, I agree with you.
USC is impressive. I mean, I love USC so much. I did not I didn't spend like my undergrad years there. I've done other work there, but it's an amazing place. So I'm always like, yeah, you do. They do have because I know a bunch of people that work there for the meeting planning, and so that's kind of started again. And then when I was working at the hospital, kind of meeting planning is where you can do it at a hospital, or you can do it anywhere really. And so then I kind of switched over from doing the marketing in a hospital setting to corporate, which was food and beverage. That's kind of where I made my kind of like, okay, I'm going over to the food and beverage world.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, a holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
So now that you're in this world, that's where, I mean, it's great. You like filled in some of my questions, but the big thing where you are now is the Sabor Latino food industry. And you are the founder of this. I want to make sure I get a chance to really plug this in. So, how did you come up with this idea in particular?
Well, I always had it, and then when I switched over, right there, this is a perfect question for this, like segued into this, because when I switched over to food and beverage, I was working as an employee for others, and I always saw like there was a need for this particular trade show, which is, again, going back to the beginning of your question, we kind of talked a little bit about it, but trade shows are for the trade only. The general public usually is not allowed into these big conferences and trade shows because they're for the business community.
Okay.
And so just like when you go to your American medical, like it's all the doctors, like you're not going to have people like Joe Blow off the street just come on in.
Right.
So same kind of thing. And so, and I followed and I collected data on all of, on the business that I would start, but I never had sort of like the cojones to like actually do it. Okay. I was just, cause I worked in corporate, I had a great job. And so, I'm working, I have an amazing job. I'm traveling the world, kind of work my way back up. I'm having my own place over by the beach. I don't live in my mom's anymore. And I was traveling a lot, and I was in the middle of like a trip. I had just returned from Germany. Came back. I was living in Long Beach, and oh my gosh, I suffered a massive heart attack. And
oh my God.
Yeah, and that's where LBMMC comes in, Long Beach Memorial Medical Center, which is the hospital that treated me for my heart attack in my 30s. Okay, which is like holy rare, right?
It is. I love how we're talking about all these great ideas. You're just about to start the Sabor Latino food industry, and then.
No. See, that's where I'm saying, like, I didn't start it until after my heart attack. Yeah. Because I didn't have, somehow after I had my heart attack, I had more kind of like a different attitude. And so the entrepreneurial spirit didn't hit me until after my heart attack.
Oh boy. But okay, let's go back to this, what happened around there. I don't want to downplay it. So, I mean, for those listening, I think that I speak for many by saying that, cardiovascular disease is, often missed and underdiagnosed in women. So can you tell me, how did you think it presented? Was it like the TV shows? Was it chest pain on the left side of your chest going down your hand? What was your symptoms and signs, and how soon did you get to the ER?
Yeah, so I started having symptoms in about like 6 or 7 months prior, which to me presented as like an electrical kind of pain in my left chest area. So I was, of course, thinking, oh my God, I have breast cancer. So, this
makes sense. Weird. I'm a woman, and hey, it's left breast. Okay, so what did you do? Did you go to your primary? Did you?
Yeah. I went into my primary care, and of course, they're thinking I'm a nutcase because I'm like, I have no medical experience, and I'm like, hey, I'm feeling these electrical pains. I have breast cancer. Got checked out, and they're like, no, you don't have breast cancer. You're fine.
So you kind of led the conversation. You're like, I'm worried about some kind of malignancy in my chest. So they were looking at one thing.
Well, I didn't say it
little
like
did
that.
they know that. Little did they know that there was a heart attack going on.
Yeah, I didn't say it like that. I actually sounded like a nutcase because I was like, I don't know what's up. I have like this pain in my chest. But I said breast. I kept saying breast. So that was one thing. And then about 7 months later, I was going to work, and yes, I experienced a heart attack.
What did it feel like? How long did it last? What happened?
Yeah, I woke up and I was feeling like crap, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was feeling tired. I had like a pain in my chest, like an elephant, like the typical like elephant, pressing down upon you, and I did feel that. And then I had like a left jaw pain, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to work now.
You went to work.
Because that's one of the things I've learned. Like women, we just kind of like, oh, okay, we're fine. Like, let's take care of everyone else. Like, we don't like take care of ourselves first. Yeah. And so I went to work, and I still felt kind of weird. And then my boss, was like, you don't look good. What's going on? And I told him, and he's like, you're having a heart attack. Cause I had one last year, and that's exactly what happened to me. And I said, no. I said, I'm like, that's crazy.
You're a funny person. I'm Lilly, jet setter. There's no way.
Right. So he's like, I'm going to drive you to the hospital. And I said, really, you don't have to do that. And I didn't feel good, but it wasn't the heart attack yet at that point. It was like coming. I didn't know. Now I know, but it was like kind of moving up to it. And so he did drive me and he's like, let me come in with you. And I said, no, I'll go in by myself. So I go in, of course, I tell him what happened. And, the last thing anyone is expecting is a heart attack from me, 37-year-old. So they just told me to have a seat. And so, waiting and waiting around. I'm not kidding you. This was probably one of the darkest days of my life where I was sitting in the ER. And I think I know like what happened at that exact moment that I had my heart attack, because it just started feeling like horrible, like dizziness and pain and my left arm. And it was like just a strong pain, and it kind of came and went, I would say a good 30 minutes. And I started crying. And of course, people are just like, looking at me like, okay, you have to wait. And I was like, oh my God.
You're like, here, finally breathe into the paper bag.
Yeah, they were like, because, again, some of the work that I do now is like changing those perceptions of, and then helping primary care doctors like recognize the symptoms. But at that point, no one knew. I didn't know what was going on. I just sat there and I was crying. I felt really stupid because I didn't know what was going on, and I just was crying. And then, so I finally got in. They did all the, the workup for the ER and all that. And then, oh my God, they all like went into like panic mode because my troponin levels were like off the chart.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So they knew like what had happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, immediately they were, sprang into action after.
Of course.
And so, and then I didn't know what was going on. So obviously, and so like maybe a few hours later, the doctors all come in and they're like, okay, we have to tell you that you suffered a heart attack. And I was like, I mean, you could have just like, was like, you've got to be joking.
Now, did that news cause another heart attack on top of the heart attack?
Yeah, almost, right?
Oh
almost.
my God.
No, I was like in total shock. And so I couldn't, like, I didn't even, and so, I was then, I was in the ICU and all that stuff. And then, they're doing medical history and they're like, did anyone in your family ever have heart attacks? And I'm like thinking, like, come to think of it. Yeah. But then you hear about like grandpa had a heart attack, your uncle had a heart attack. And I knew that my uncle had a heart attack and I knew my grandpa had a heart attack, but I didn't like, I don't know. It just never like sank in. Like, I just never even thought it would happen to me. And so when I, was doing the family history, I called my mom and I didn't tell her anything. I said, Mom, okay, so grandpa had a heart attack and he passed away. And then she said, yeah, he was 37 and he had a heart attack and he died 5 days later. And I was like, okay. I was like, let me call you back. And I was 37. Yeah. And I just had a heart attack and I was like, I've got 5 days to live. so anyways, it was a crazy time. It took me about 2 years to recover fully, like physically from my heart attack, cardiac rehab and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And
not to mention recovery for you, I imagine it's not like recovery for the average Joe because you're so high functioning and you're multitasking. So I'm sure it was not the easiest battle getting back to where you were. You know what I mean?
Right. It was like, it really messed me up in the head because, it just like, it was like, why did this happen? Like, what is going on? And I mean, I think psychologically it really messed me up.
Of course.
More than anything else. And I feel like physically, like, I mean, it was tough. Like I could barely walk, and I'm a big hiker, me. I mean, I'm like out there in like the wilderness and I could barely walk. I could barely like do anything. It took me about 6 months to kind of like start walking again, like normal, I was like walking really slow, like a walker, like it was just sad.
I know what that is. I want people to know like what you did, which was, I saw you on the cover of People's Magazine. I see you periodically walking the runway wearing this beautiful red dress. How did you get involved? How did you get in the magazine? How did you get involved with all these things? Did they seek you out? Did you seek them out? Was that like a new goal in your life to raise awareness? Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, no, dude, I totally like just started helping others that were in the same situation. And so once I started, kind of getting better. Long Beach Memorial is an awesome hospital. They helped me kind of connect with other people who had heart attacks. And of course, I was always like the youngest person. And, people were like freaking out. This was about about 3.5 years after mine, I was like doing better.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I was talking to people who had just had it like the day before, or maybe the day after or whatever. It helped me a lot, like to help them, to kind of tell them you're going to be okay. We have great doctors, great, healthcare system, you're going to be okay. And so, I started going back to my, healthy living and things like that, and just helping other people. And I think with my volunteer work, they asked me to do more, and I got involved. And, I just always tried to, keep it positive. And I think that's what's like the most helpful when you have like a really positive, amazing attitude of like kindness and helpfulness. Not that I'm like the kindest person on the planet, but I try to be. I think that really resonates with a lot of people, and then they like seek you out and always kind of like listening to other stories, and people, they just seek you out for different things. So that's where I was asked to be part of American Heart Association volunteers, and then they had all these volunteers, and then they usually pick 13 women for the Go Red every year. And I got chosen to be one of the 13. I believe it was 2018. And then from there, they pick one who they represents American Heart nationally. And then you get to go to like, New York Fashion Week and all these different things. So I was chosen to do that, which was a great opportunity. I got to meet like Elon Musk's mom, hang out with, yeah. And she's really cool, and just all these like really cool people. And it's fun. They're all kind of bringing awareness to cardiovascular disease, which is so important, especially with women.
And this is where I saw you kind of walking down the runway, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And how was that? Because I know you as a person.
Fun.
And I'm like, wait a minute, there's Lilly, kind of very fashionable despite having heart disease, on the runway. Was that almost going to cause a heart attack, or did that go okay?
You know what? It was really fun because, I didn't, you don't have to do anything. As you know, from being on TV and stuff, you just show up, and then people like do your makeup and hair and like put clothes on you. And you're like, okay, this is cool. I want to do this all the time. But yeah, basically just told me to get to New York, and I got there, and, I was basically doing my thing there. So it was great. It was great.
And I want to bring it back. So now that we had this, I wanted to spend a lot of time with that because that's just an amazing story. And I'm so happy that you're doing good now. Let's go back to talking about the Sabor Latino food industry. So explain that. How did that, you said you got these epiphanies and extra entrepreneurship after the heart attack. Explain how that came up. And this is your baby, right?
Right. And I think it was just obviously it didn't have anything to do with the heart attack, but it just had to do more with like, hey, life is short. Why don't you like do something you've always wanted to do? And I think that it just gave me a little bit more confidence to be able to start my own business. So I knew the business in and out. I did start the trade show. There was no other Latin food trade show at the time. So it was welcomed in the industry. That went on for, 6-7 years. Right before COVID, I sold my show, which was like crazy because we didn't know about COVID.
I didn't even know that. You're revealing this to me on the podcast. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And it was February 2020.
Okay.
And COVID hit March 2020. And so it was literally like sold the show. I was heading to New York, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I heard about this like virus going around. And then of course, Therese, my partner, works in the field. So then she was like, hey, maybe you shouldn't go to New York right now. And so I didn't go. And then obviously we were in COVID after that. So since then, I still work in food and beverage. I've again been involved in so many different organizations with regard to food. Going back to what we said about keeping it healthy. My personal choice of eating healthy, that's just for me. But, I do work in an industry where they have, like the hot Cheeto, pizza, and whatever, like there's all kinds of stuff and, craziness. But I do tend to, myself try to keep it healthy. And, when I can, I'll have like last weekend when we had the chef's dinner, and actually I need to invite you to those.
Of course.
We have a few coming up, and you would be like amazing to come in.
So I was going to ask you, I mean, would you consider yourself a foodie with all this food we've been talking about today? And can you cook, or are you more of an just an eater type person?
I avoided the word foodie for so long because I just think it's so trendy. But yes, I am a foodie. I'm gonna take the title because I do know food and beverage, and I love it, and I definitely have a discerning palate, and I love food, and can I cook? There's only a few things I can cook, like there's only a few things that I can cook well. Okay. So I'm
and
not a chef.
you can't pick Lego waffles and toast or anything. So
Right.
you are good around,
Exactly.
you know your way around the kitchen then.
Yeah, I can do a few things here and there. I can assist, I can be like a sous chef or something, but yeah, no, I definitely, I know my way around the food industry and food, in the kitchen, and work with a lot of chefs now. And lately we've just been doing a lot of things with chefs. It's been so much fun.
Now, when you say
so,
recently, are you still the CEO of the Latino Restaurant Association?
You know what? I am the head of the Latino Restaurant Association, and
That's awesome.
CEO / executive director. We are national. We're national.
What's your responsibilities? I wanted to figure this out. It sounds
you're like, what the heck?
powerful. What do you do?
Yeah, what do you do all day long?
Yeah.
Just eat. No, I'm just kidding. No, well, I'll make it simple. 50% of my job is advocacy for restaurant owners, because most of our members are restaurant owners. So what that means is I go to Sacramento, I go to Washington, D.C. on their behalf.
Oh,
so
no way.
So let's say you're a restaurant owner, right? Let's say we got Raj's Taqueria, right? And we're so you are a member of the association. And then so right now, like during COVID, they allowed you to put up a patio outside, put all your stuff outside, cook outside, and the liquor, department, alcohol and department said that you're allowed to do alcohol to go, and they even expedited your permit really quickly. Now, all of those things are things that then the government wants to take away from you. So then I go to Sacramento and DC on your behalf and say, no. I've got 10,000 people that own restaurants, and we need to have those things stay put. Like we want the alcohol, we want, the outside dining, we want, all these things. So all these, like, there's a whole list of like political issues that are associated with owning a restaurant. So then I go on your behalf to kind of, lobby on your behalf to Washington, D.C. That's 50% of my job. The other 50% of my job is, all right, Raja's Taqueria, they need help with, how to run their restaurant. So then we do programs, we put together curriculum so that you and your staff can come and learn how to run your business more successfgoing. And we have a ton of stuff like that. So we have like webinars and, classes and all kinds of things that we're going to invite you to and say, hey, we have this going on next week, come on down, you guys can, take it, and it's free. It's all free. So yeah, so we're, 50% advocacy and legislative work, and then the other 50% is all programming work.
Now,
and that's my job in a nutshell.
This makes sense, Lily, why every time, like, I want to get a hold of you, I mean, you're just taking pictures from New York and DC, and you're just everywhere. So this makes sense now. And I think this fits you really well. And I really do love this story about where you started. I love the trade show part of it. I love where you are now. And this suits you. I like it. I like the title CEO. It's very uplifting. I love it.
Hey, I always say, I work for a nonprofit, so, I'm not like a real CEO.
Well, so this is a good seg for this one, which is, right now, I mean, what are your goals for the future? What do you want to do personally, or what do you want to do for the industry, the Latino food industry? What's your next steps?
Yeah, thank you. So, I'm always a lifelong learner. I love school, as we discussed earlier. So, since I work a lot with the legislative situation that I just mentioned, I decided to go ahead and finish my law school, which I started a million years ago, but I didn't finish. So I'm currently in law school trying to finish that up.
I didn't know that. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, so a lot of people ask me, like, what the hell's going on? Why? And I'm like, no. I'm not going to like get a law degree and go like put up a shingle and be like, oh, I'm a lawyer. No, I'm not going to do that. This is just to add to my current position. It'll just be more, it'll give me more credibility when I'm in, the halls of government and saying, hey, I'm an attorney as well. So, and I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I like that. But there may not be enough letters behind your last name to put all those titles. You know that, right?
No, there always is. You know that. and so, yeah, so that's kind of where I see myself finishing my Juris Doctorate and JD. And then also I see myself going back to corporate, sometime in the next 5 to 10 years, hopefully, helping run a larger food business, which is something that I enjoy. And I'm always going to be part of the LRA because, obviously we're very dedicated to our nonprofit. And it's, I've been around since 2018 with this nonprofit. So yeah, so I see myself continuing my legislative work, strengthening that with my JD, and then hopefully working some large food organization. So yeah, and then continuing to, on the personal side, I'm hoping to do, Yosemite and some of the bigger parks and hiking. And I love my, and I didn't tell you, I got into Pilates recently. It's like life changing. It really is. It's life changing. Pilates. If you haven't done the reformer, Dr. Raj, you've got to check it out. It's amazing.
Don't get me wrong. When my wife talks about the importance of the core, it's hard to do Pilates. I don't think I gave it a good shot, but God bless you, Lilly, to do that. You like doing these things. That's awesome.
Well, your wife is right with that. It's all about the core, honestly, especially as you get older. Like you have to have a good core. So
for sure. Now, for one of the last things I wanted to ask you, I think that, I do have a lot of young people, young entrepreneurs, people who haven't had their course set for them just yet. Not all my listeners are going the medical route. They want to do a lot of different things. That's why I have guests like you. So for those who want to be like a CEO in the future or want to be involved in something similar to trade shows or starting their own company, what advice would you give them?
You know what? I think one of the best things that people can do for themselves is what I call deep work. And that would be setting aside about 3 hours a day to do deep work. And that's like turn your phone off, just do your work, like the deep work that you have to do. Entrepreneurship has something that, is very different from others, which is like, you're basically in charge of putting together the structure of your company. Remember, if you want to be an entrepreneur, the goal is to have a company that runs itself without you. So you don't want to have a company that if you're not there, then the company goes downhill. It has to be where you set up a company, you set up some amazing systems where if you're not there, the systems are still going to run themselves.
That makes sense.
That's always the goal of the business is to have a business where you have such an amazing structure in place that it's going to run itself. And that's always the goal. And, that's where people, own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 businesses because they get really good at doing that. And so that's one of the things that we teach restaurants, people who own businesses what to do, but that it actually applies to all businesses. And so that's just like one of the, core tenets of business where you want to set up amazing systems. And then how do you do that is by doing the deep work, whether it's you by yourself or you with, people that you bring in to do this work. But yeah, I think that's like so key. And I talk about this all the time because, a lot of people don't do it.
No, I know. I love that advice. So last but not least, if one of my listeners or anyone out there wants to learn more about you or learn more about the industry or about the Latino Restaurant Association, any websites or anything you could direct them to? We'll put it in our show notes, but do you want to mention anything?
So the Latino Restaurant Association is LatinoRestaurantAssociation.org. And anybody who calls up and says they listen to your podcast, we will give them basically the $99 a year for free. So
wow.
Yeah, exactly. It's $99 a year, but give it to them for free. All they have to do is mention your show and they can become a member. And then everything that we have on our website, which they will see at LatinoRestaurantAssociation.org, they receive for free. All of that is all free stuff. If they want to follow me personally, if you want to follow all my exploits and
why not
shadiness, you can go to the Lilly Rocha, Rocca. It's not my last name, but it's the Lilly, Rocca, Rocha, on Instagram. And so, yeah, I'm always looking for followers, shameless plug. So, so that's it. But yeah, if anybody that contacts me saying that they know you, we'll take care of them, make sure that we can answer any questions for them. Happy to point them in, any direction. I do have a lot of, other than the restaurant industry, I have an extensive background in entrepreneurship and business. And I feel like, I can definitely help anyone in any business. So happy to help.
No, and you know what? I'm going to say that's why we had you here. I just know you're going to be a good role model. Just when you hear the story and what you could offer people. And like even this, I mean, somehow you made a great business deal. Like, hey, download my podcast, mention it, and boom, this is so cool. But I want to make sure I say thank you for coming on the show today, because you are a busybody. And on top of that, I just know that it was a treat to talk to one of my besties on the podcast day. So, Lilly, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. I always miss you. Yes, I'm always on the road, but I love everything that you do. So thank you so much for having me. And this is a great opportunity. And I'm excited. I'm excited to share it with all my followers as well.
Awesome. So everyone out there, I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast, and all this is going to be in the show notes. So stay tuned. Next podcast coming up in probably another 2 weeks. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Ars Longa Media. Our producers are Madison Linden and Chris Brightigan. Our executive producer is Dr. Patrick Beeman. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended for medical advice. Ars Longa, Vita Brevis.